Mara arrives back on the ship, but she is shell-shocked about what Daniel told her. The fact that Daniel kept mentioning Wake Up, a book called The Awakening by Kate Chopin, catches her eye. She looks at it for all of a couple of seconds, but she's got a bigger issue because she walked into a storm. The ship is in a really, really bad storm. I mean, there's dangers of this thing capsizing. The worst part is no one has seen the captain, so nobody knows how to actually steer the ship out of this. The passengers go searching for the captain, as does Mara. She doesn't find the captain, but she does find the first mate. He plays the whole, wait, captain's not with me, I thought he was with you type of game. And then he asks her if she found the boy. When she signals no, he walks off. Because he's not interested in actually finding the captain. He's interested in finding that boy. He goes into the captain's room, pulls out a drawer, and there's a hidden tablet inside. He uses that to try to find the boy. A last-ditch effort via a 3D model, but he's still having trouble. Mara, meanwhile, went searching on the bridge, but the only person she finds is Virginia, who is on death's door. She's done a really good job of hiding the fact that her whole hand has turned black from everybody, but she wanted to get Mara's opinion. And Mara tells her, I've never seen anything like this, but don't worry, you're not going to die. But damn, she's close to it. Mara can't stay and chat very long with Virginia because she has to go and find the captain, so she decides to look into his nightmare, going down the shaft into his room and seeing if she can find him there. This time, she actually goes into his house. That's when she runs into his wife. Or it appeared like it was his wife. The captain's wife asks, may I help you? Are you lost? But she just keeps repeating it. And eventually, her voice turns from human to very robotic. She then decides that since nothing's worked so far, she might as well go searching in the shaft in Daniel's room. She goes in there, and she finds the picture of herself, which leads credence to what Daniel said. She then goes down the shaft, and she's in Daniel's nightmare, which is inside of the pyramid. But inside the pyramid appears to be a sort of living quarter. And it is indeed that, because that's where her and Daniel lived. Being back is giving her some flashbacks. But she walks over to a table and notices a bunch of pictures of her, Daniel, and the boy. And that's because the boy is Mara and Daniel's child, Elliot. And as she's looking at these pictures, Daniel is trying to make his way back to their son. Locked in that room, he didn't have many options. But using his ingenuity and his previous experience, he knew that what looked like the hull of the ship wasn't actually the hull of the ship. It was just a wall. He pops it off, and inside was a bunch of wires. He was able to walk through the wires until eventually finding an exit. When he hopped out, the landscape looked a lot like Mara's dream, but right away he sees Father Ramiro's cross. Not too far away from it was a well, and he hops inside of there. It's worth mentioning the whole time he is being watched by Henry Singleton. Slowly, though, Daniel is making his way through the maze and making it back to Mara's nightmare. Going down the well shaft led him to a cold, desolate location that looked a lot like where they kept Hopper in Season 4 of Stranger Things. And just like in his previous stop, he sees something there that doesn't belong. It's the picture of the Statue of Liberty that Olek kept with him. Right next to that is a trail of blood leading to a hut. Daniel looks around for the exit, and then it blips up. It's an opening just like the one that he used to get out of the room. When he goes through that one, he is finally back in Mara's nightmare. He knows where the boy's hiding. It's the gravesite. He runs to it, opens the casket, goes down, and that's where the boy's been the entire time. The boy looks at Daniel and says, "It's happening again." And Daniel nods and says, "They're shutting it down. But you were right. We've never gotten this far before. It's not lost." The boy then asks Daniel if he's found the code, and Daniel says no. The boy asks about his mother, and Daniel has to tell him she still doesn't remember. But he reassures the boy that they will get her out so she can end this loop once and for all. He just needs to find his device so he can stop this. Right before he leaves the boy tells him, "You have to find the code. She has to remember where it is." Then Daniel takes off to go find Mara. He should have, though, thought of taking the boy with him, because on the ship, the first mate has been able to locate where the boy is. Using the same tablet, he gets a message to Henry telling him, "I found him," and then he goes and gets him, delivering the boy and the pyramid to Henry. Daniel is unaware that his boy has been found when he finds Mara inside his nightmare, inside the pyramid. He finds her staring at that family photo, and he explains, "That's our son." She thinks it's impossible, though, because she's always been told that she couldn't have children. and Daniel explains that that's a false memory. She feels like she would remember having a child, so she can't figure out why she doesn't remember, and Daniel tells her it's because she wanted to forget. You wanted to get rid of the pain. Daniel then gets really close to Mara and says, I know you remember. It's somewhere in there. And then he kisses her. When he does that, blips of her memory start to come back. This does feel familiar to her. But she also gets completely freaked out by it, so she pushes him back and says, this isn't real. You're not real. And he yells at her, you're trapped here. You all are. This isn't real. This is a simulation. You've just forgotten what's real. But you have to remember. You have to wake up. If you don't, there's going to be nothing left to wake up for. And your consciousness is going to be trapped in here forever. They then both hear a siren, and Daniel picks her up and says, we're running out of time. We've got to get you out of here before it restarts. There is indeed a countdown going on, and they don't have much time. When they get back to the ship, Daniel tells her that they're shutting down the simulation, but there's a code, there's an override. It's the only way out before everything restarts. It's somewhere on the ship, and Mara knows where it is, but she has to remember where it is. Mara's really confused by all of this, and Daniel tells her that in the simulation, a code can be any object. And that's when it dawns on Mara. She's been wearing this necklace that she got in that letter that she thinks was from her brother. Sure enough, when she pops it open, there's a small key, although she has no idea what the key goes to. Daniel seems to put the key in his hand and then put it back in her hand. But they're not the only people that know about this key now, because Henry was watching it from his office. Daniel then drags Mara over to the captain's quarters. He grabs the same tablet that the first mate used. Because it's 1899, Mara has no idea what that thing is, and Daniel explains to her that, just like in any program, there are hidden cheats and shortcuts inside the simulation. He assures her that she'll understand all of this when she wakes up. He starts typing in a series of codes, because once they flush everybody out, everything's going to start again. When that happens, this ship is going to go into something called the archive, just like every other ship, because this has happened time and time and time again. But unlike the previous times, by punching in this code, he'll anchor everybody to this ship, which means they'll go through the same portal that the ship goes through. By doing this, it's going to buy them a little bit more time. Mara is still a little bit confused, and Daniel tells her that this happens every 8 days. No ship has ever made it to the destination. She's just caught in a loop, simulation after simulation. Once he's completed anchoring everybody to the ship, he tells her we got to go get Elliot. But they only have 10 minutes until the shutdown is complete. With 10 minutes remaining, one by one, some of the passengers start passing away for various reasons. Oleg gets brushed off of the top deck by a wave. Lucien finally succumbs to whatever is in his brain. Angel gets crushed by a pipe. Franz sacrifices himself so that Tova can live. Tova's parents end up drowning. The deaths are being watched by Henry. Henry tells the first mate and Elliot that every single time they make the same mistakes. And because of it, every single time they die. It's all because they can't get rid of their emotions. But that's what makes them weak. It's human nature's ultimate flaw. One shouldn't base a choice on love, anger, or hate. They're just silly feelings that cloud the mind. He then addresses Mara and Daniel. Both of them had made their way back to Mara's cabin where, when they showed up, the doorway to Mara's nightmare was closed. There was no entrance. It was just a floor. Henry first addresses Daniel, telling him that it was a smart move using the Prometheus to gain access. But nevertheless, he failed. He goes on to say that the little reprogramming that Daniel did isn't going to help because everybody on the ship will eventually die. And then they'll just take part in the next simulation. All of them are just trapped in this loop. He then addresses Mara, saying, you have something I want. I want the key. And in return, you will keep your son. Up until this point, they had no idea that Henry even had their son. They start frantically asking, what have you done with him? Where is he? But all Henry says is, I want the key, and you know where to find me. Henry then shuts off the communication, and Daniel grabs Mara and says, I will fix this. You have to trust me. Right before he takes off, he hands Mara his wedding ring. Unfortunately for everybody on board, time is up. The ship gets moved into the archive, but because of what Daniel did, they go with the ship, which is quite a surprise to the captain, because he's still in the Prometheus. So he hears the noise and he comes up to the top deck to see the ship that he was the captain of literally come up out of the water. And then, one by one, the survivors start to show themselves. They are Mara, Jerome, Tolva, Ling, Ramiro, Clemence, and Virginia. And it's hard to figure out who is more shocked to see who. But the reason why Henry wants the key so badly is because the key goes along with that little black pyramid that Elliot was holding. When you open it up, there's a slot for the key. And engraved in it, it says, "Wake up." Henry turns to Elliot and says, "Your mother will bring me the key, and then this will all finally come to an end." Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.